Welcome everyone. In this video, we are going to be diving into my top 5 best teams for the Great League. Now, Season 12 is in the books. It is a thing of the past, and we move forward into Season 13 of Pokemon Go Battle League. And with a new season comes some new meta shifts and some new Pokemon that are very much newly meta relevant. And of course, we have to have the top 5 best teams for the Great League, as the Great League will be dropping later on today at the normal time that leagues typically reset. And like I said, guys, things have shaken up a little bit across the entirety of Pokemon Go Battle League, and we begin with the Great League. So, without further ado, we've got some very powerful teams that you can run in the Great League to kick things off right and get things started on the right foot. So with all that said, let's dive into team number 1. All right, guys, here we go. Team number 1, making a return from last season's top 5 best teams list. It's returning for season 13 of Pokemon Go Battle League. And that is because it is absolutely busted and overpowered beyond imagination. And it is none other than Medicham on the lead, Lickitung on the safe swap, and Stunfisk in the back to close the game strong. Guys, this team, I'm telling you, I've featured it on the channel a few times now. It made my top 5 best Medicham teams list. It made last season's top 5 best teams for the Great League list, and that is for good reason. It is overpowered, so very powerful team. Let's have a look at this scorecard here. And look at that, guys. Holy smokes. Even with the meta shift, this team is still insanely powerful. You get an A for coverage, an A for bulk, an A for safety, and a B for consistency. That is amazing, guys. This team is so powerful. So let's have a look at these matchups. Medicham on the lead is going to be very powerful, as we all may know by now. There is one core breaker for this team, guys. You can take your best guess, but I'm going to spoil it and let you know right now. It's Noctowl. Noctowl core breaks the Medicham Lickitung core pretty hard. It did before it got buffed with the new Wing Attack update, but it is even worse now, guys. Holy smokes. Noctowl will be your biggest challenge with this team. But like I always say on this channel, one Pokemon cannot do it all, and Noctowl is no exception to that rule. So the way I would play a Noctowl lead is I would stay in, chip with an Ice Punch. You can maybe even stay in a little longer than that and go for 2 Ice Punches. Noctowl comfortably tanks 2 Ice Punches pretty well because it is quite bulky, and I don't think I would recommend going for the 2 Ice Punches just because that Wing Attack damage really adds up on Medicham. It is obviously super effective. So the safer play would be to chip with 1 Ice Punch and then dip into Lickitung and play on from there. That's how I would play the Noctowl lead. And of course, you've got Stunfisk, which absolutely dominates Noctowl. So really not too bad. A bit of a core breaker, but not impossible. Trevenant and all other ghosts, that is an insta swap into Lickitung, and you were playing on from there. The way I would play the Altaria lead, Altaria is going to be pretty strong in this new meta, and you will likely be seeing a lot of Altaria, particularly on the lead. So I would play that very similarly to how I would play Noctowl on the lead, and that is chip with an Ice Punch and dip into Lickitung. Altaria on the lead generally comes paired with some sort of steel type. The most common Altaria with a steel cover team would be Altaria, Registeel, and Toxicroak. We will have to see how that plays out as the season goes on, but that is the most common Altaria team that you will see. So obviously a Ice Punch will do a lot more damage to Altaria than it would Noctowl, so you are even better off there. Honestly, with this team, I would much rather see an Altaria lead than a Noctowl lead. So that's how I would play Altaria. The Medicham mirror match on the lead is pretty tricky as well. You kind of have to get off that big psychic. It's always a bit of a game of chicken or a bit of a mind game in just about any mirror matchup. The Medicham mirror matchup is no different. You kind of have to really get off that big psychic. It hits for heavy neutral damage on an opposing Medicham, and Lickitung can absolutely hold its own against against Medicham, especially if you're able to get off some big damage. So that's how I play Medicham on the lead. What else do we have here? Skarmory on the lead. Can be pretty tricky, but Medicham actually does surprisingly well up against Skarmory. One, because Skarmory is taking neutral damage from your counter fast move pressure, and two, Skarmory doesn't have the best fast move available. It runs Air Slash, so it takes pretty long to charge up to those charge attacks, and all the while Medicham's doing heavy neutral damage with the counters, as well as with your ice punches. So Skarmory leads, not too bad. I would chip with a couple of ice punches. You can comfortably tank a sky attack. So if you want to keep the shielding scenario even, you can definitely tank one and then make a play into Lickitung. And that's about it. Toxapex can be a bit tricky as well, as it does beat both Medicham and Lickitung in the one shield, but when you're running Medicham on the lead, it's not the one shield, it's the two shield, so it's a little bit different there. And obviously Psychic, although Toxapex is about as bulky as a Pokemon can get, that still does a lot of damage. So I would try and get off that big Psychic before bailing into Lickitung. That's how I would play Toxapex. And everything else in between is pretty straightforward. So yeah, that's team number one. Very powerful team. You'll definitely see this team featured this season on this channel. I am a big fan of this team. Very strong, very powerful, very good for climbing. So that is team number one. And with all that said, let's have a look at team number two. All right, here we go. Team number two. Holy smokes. I don't know how many seasons it's been, but my goodness, this team, or I should say this core, has truly withstood the test of time like no other team that I've ever seen. And this team probably looks very familiar to many of you, especially those of you who have been around for day one of Pokemon Go Battle League. And it is none other than the Bastiodon Medicham core, tried and true, time-tested and proven. And this variation is my favorite variation. Classically, you see it with Sableye on the safe swap, but I like Trevenant on the safe swap. And it gives the team a little bit of a different dynamic. So if you run the Sableye, the classic Sableye variation, you are covering Charmers, but Charmers have fallen off quite a bit. You put Trevenant in there, and the dynamic is a little bit different because you're not double weak to Charm in the back. You're only single weak. However, you are double weak to Flying, so this is covering Flying. What move was updated for Season 13? That is none other than Wing Attack, which means that you're going to see a heavy rise in usage of Flyers, and this team will handle them beautifully. Sort of works like an ABB style team. Trevenant's on the safe swap to draw out any of those Flyers that may be lurking in the back. You may draw out a Noctowl. That's the worst case scenario. But if it's any other flyer, you're going to be doing okay. Altaria to an extent as well. So very powerful team. Let's have a look at the scorecard here. And not bad, guys. Not bad at all. This is amazing. You basically get straight A's across the board. You do get a C for safety. But I will say, guys, when I'm evaluating a team here on PvPoke, I weight the safety score at the very bottom. What I look for is an A or B for coverage, very solid scores for bulk and consistency. Safety, that one's a little bit subjective, guys. So, it's hard to qualify what safe is, which is why I don't weight it very highly. So getting a C for safety is not the worst thing in the world, but my goodness, you get an A for coverage, A for bulk, and an A for consistency. That is amazing. So let's have a look at these matchups here. And not a whole lot to really hammer home with team number 2 here, guys. It's pretty straightforward. Not only has it consistently been one of the most powerful team comps that you could run, but it is also consistently one of the easiest teams. It's straightforward, guys. Bastiodon wins what it wins really well in the situations that it's supposed to win, and it loses pretty hard in the situations that it is not supposed to win. So with that in mind, it's pretty easy. You're swapping out on fighters, you're swapping out on steel types. Everything else in between, Bastiodon does pretty darn well, especially against those flyers. There's no better time, in my opinion, guys, than now to run this team. So many Pokemon were buffed with the new Wing Attack update. You're going to be seeing flyers everywhere, particularly Noctowl. You're going to see a lot of Noctowl. Pelipper is back on the map, guys. It was pretty good a few seasons back. Saw a drop-off in usage when Weather Ball was nerfed, but now that Wing Attack has been buffed, you're going to see a lot more Pelipper as well, guys. So that's why this team, there's no better time to run it. So pretty easy, guys. There's not a whole lot to hammer home with this team. You're swapping out on steel and fighting type leads and everything else in between. You're going to do just fine on. Trevenant proves to be an amazing safe swap option, even in with the exception of Noctowl. Noctowl hard walls Trevenant harder than any Pokemon that I can think of in this entire meta. So if it's not a Noctowl that they counter swap you with, you're going to be able to do heavy pressure on health or shields, and that is never a bad thing to set up Medicham to sweep the game. So that is how this team is played. Tried and true, time-tested and proven. Pretty solid scorecard with the meta shift, and that is Bastiodon on the lead, Trevenant on the safe swap, and good old Medicham in the back to close the game strong. So, with all that said, that is team number 2, and now let's have a look at team number 3. All right, guys, here we go. Team number 3, another very powerful team for the Great League, and it leads with Stunfisk on the lead, Noctowl on the safe swap, and Altaria in the back to close the game strong. Holy smokes. A classic ABB style team for you guys. The beauty of an ABB style team is it's so effective and yet very easy to play. So that is what this team is. This team is an ABB style team, like I said. So the 2 Pokemon in the back are going to protect Stunfisk from its weaknesses, that being fighters, water types, and ground types. And G-Fisk is going to be protecting the 2 Pokemon in the back from opposing steel types, ice types, and for Altaria, Charmers. So the goal with this team is on a neutral or losing lead, as with all ABB-style teams, you're swapping out immediately into Noctowl in hopes of drawing out a steel type, a ice type, or a Charmer. That way it clears the way for Altaria to sweep the endgame. That's how this team is designed, and that is how it is designed to win a lot. So let's have a look at the scorecard here and have a look at that. Not bad, guys. You get a B for coverage, an A for bulk, a lot of bulk on this team, B for safety, and an A for consistency. Very solid scorecard for team number 3. Let's have a look at these matchups here. So pretty straightforward, as with all ABB style teams. It's not overly nuanced. Pretty simple. Neutral or losing leads, you're swapping immediately into Noctowl to draw out that ice, steel, or Charmer. And you come back in with G-Fisk, you take it out, and that hopefully frees up Altaria to sweep the endgame. I did want to go over Walrein, though. Walrein can be a bit of a handful for this team. Not gonna lie. You have to stay in there and take out the Walrein, play out the 2-shield if necessary. Try your very best to call those baits. I know it's tricky. It's a 50-50 shot as to whether you are correct or not. That is just the nature of GBL. But you have to do your very best to take out the Walrein or get it very, very low. One Rock Slide does quite a bit of damage to Walrein, and they will definitely tank one. So that'll put you that much further ahead. If things go awry, you don't call a Earthquake correctly, and then Noctowl can do okay. So that's how you play Walrein with this team. Everything else, again, pretty straightforward. Stunfisk is going to beat all those flyers that you may encounter on the lead. That's why there's no better time to run a strong steel type like Stunfisk on the lead. You're protecting it from the fighters with the 2 flyers in the back. Very powerful dynamic for this ABB style team. Probably the best ABB team you can run with how the meta is for Season 13. So that is team number 3. Stunfisk on the lead, Noctowl on the safe swap, and Trevenant. Altaria. There could be, those are 2 very different Pokemon. Holy smokes. Altaria in the back to close the game strong. So that is team number 3. And with all that said, let's have a look at team number 4. All right, guys, here we go. Team number 4. Very powerful team for the Great League. And it leads with Noctowl on the lead, Lantern on the safe swap, and Medicham in the back to close the game strong. So, like I said, Wing Attack being buffed was a major game changer for a lot of the flyers in this meta. And I think Noctowl and Pelipper have benefited the most from the Wing Attack buff. It is quite the game changer, I will say. Noctowl was pretty meta last season, and it's full-blown hardcore hyper meta now with this buff. So let's have a look at this scorecard here. And not bad yet again. Identical scorecard to team number 3. You get a B for coverage, an A for bulk, B for safety, and an A for consistency. Very, very, very solid scorecard for team number 4. Let's have a look at these matchups here. So Noctowl on the lead is going to be pretty strong. Obviously, the steel types like Stunfisk, you're going to probably see a lot of Stunfisk. A lot of people are probably planning ahead, trying to get ahead of the game a little bit, and are going to absolutely be leading with Stunfisk a lot. But Noctowl, you can't be slept on. It could still put in the work against the steel types because it does have access to Shadow Ball. And you can definitely stay in there a little bit, chip with a Shadow Ball, and then make the play into Lantern. Lantern can do quite well against Stunfisk, especially if you're able to call the Earthquake. And generally what I've been seeing is a lot of battlers don't really play the bait game too much with their G-Fisk. They usually just go right for that EQ. You see a lot of the baiting stuff in the lower elos, so if you can fight your way up to a respectable elo, it's pretty straightforward if you're running Lantern and you find yourself up against a G-Fisk. Of course, you do have access to Surf. It's a soft loss. Stunfisk is a team effort. Ideally, you want to get that Medicham on it if at all possible. But the Stunfisk lead is just going to be rough. You have to hang in there, play wisely, and try and get that Medicham on the G-Fisk if at all possible. The beauty of running a flyer like Noctowl against something like a G-Fisk is they have to land 3 Rock Slides. They cannot farm down after landing 2 because the Mud Shots are doing no damage. And the Shadow Balls really do add up. A safer way to play that is to just outright soft lose the lead with Noctowl against G-Fisk and then align the Medicham onto it. But you run the risk of there being a Trevenant in the back. So that's why I think I think you'll want to swap out at some point to draw out that Trevenant if it is there. That way, or even some sort of ghost type. The most common is going to be Trevenant. That way, Metachamp can roam free and wreak havoc. So that's how I would tackle the G-Fisk leads. Any other Steel lead? Reggie Steel may see a reemergence, may have a little bit more relevance, but I think you'll see a lot more Basties and Stunfisk than Reggie Steel. Bastiodon is just straightforward. You're out of there in the Lantern and you're playing on from there. Swampert you're going to do just fine against. And Altaria is the one I really wanted to hammer home. That's a bit of a problem for the team as a whole. But all three Pokemon can do well depending on shielding scenarios and what have you. Noctowl has a very narrow loss in the 2 shield if you encounter Altaria on the lead. It's very close. You will lose that lead, but you could easily come in with Lantern and farm down at that point because the Altaria will be quite low. And you easily tank a resisted Sky Attack, no problem, or even a Moonblast if they have the residual energy to spare. So that is Altaria, your soft losing lead there. Any ice type like A9 or Walrein, you're getting out of there just as fast as you can. Frostlass is a very tricky one, particularly because it core breaks Noctowl and Metacham. You may see it. Frostlass has seen quite the boost in the rankings for Season 13. You're not going to want to stay in there. You can. I mean, you can definitely comfortably tank an Avalanche, but it's not fun. You can try to get off that Sky Attack, maybe grab a shield or some health, and then make the play into Lantern. Lantern Mirror, you're going to want to stay in there. Play out all even shield. Basically go shield for shield. If they shield, you shield, and then play that out. And if their Lantern happens to be the one left standing, you come in with Medi and play on from there. And that's about it. Everything else is pretty straightforward with this team. Very solid scorecard for it. That is team number 3. Noctowl on the lead, Lantern on the safe swap, and Metacham in the back to close the game strong. So that is team number 4. And with all that said, let's have a look at team number 5. All right, my friends, last but certainly not least, team number 5. Another pretty solid team for you to run in the Great League. It leads with Alola Ninetales running Powder Snow, G-Fisk on the safe swap, and Defense Form Deoxys in the back to close the game strong. Very powerful team. A9 running Powder Snow on the leads is basically here to target those very powerful Altaria leads and all the other flyers that we will be seeing a lot of on the lead. So this team very strong. Let's have a look at the scorecard here. And not bad at all. Very, actually identical to team number 3 and team number 4's scorecard. Yet again, you get a B for coverage, A for bulk, B for safety, and an A for consistency. Let's have a look at these matchups here. So, like I said, we're going to see a lot of flyers making their way into the Great League meta, especially on the lead. A lot of people are going to be leading with Altaria, and that's because Altaria actually beats all of the other flyers outside of Skarmory, I believe. And even with Skarmory, it's still very close. Dragon Breath is just insanely overpowered. So leading with A9 is going to do very well, get you that much further ahead of the game. You're going to be doing well against all the other flyers as well. Pelipper actually will be the toughest flyer, along with Skarmory, of course. But with the buff to Wing Attack, I think you might see Skarmory replaced by a lot of the other flyers, Pelipper being one. If you encounter it on the lead, it's very close. It's very, very close, despite the typing on Pelipper. At the end of the day, it's taking neutral damage from your Ice-type damage. It's a very narrow victory. It's very IV dependent, I will say. But you don't really want to swap out of that. You kind of want to stay in, play it out. If they're the ones left standing in the end, it's not the end of the world, because that's a major obstacle out of the way. Because Pelipper actually beats a G-Fisk, would you believe that, with the buff to wing attack. So I would stay in there, play that out with the Pelipper. Swampert is another tricky one for this team. That's another one where you're going to have to stay in there, take your lumps with that Swampert, and then come in with your DD and play on from there. Everything else pretty straightforward. You're going to do well against Medicham on the lead. Lantern's going to be a bit tricky. You're getting out of there. That's not a good lead for you. Lantern's just too bulky. It's resisting your fast move pressure. And that even if you do happen to land that Hail Mary Dazzling Gleam, it's still not going to be great for you, because Lantern tanks that pretty easily. And just keeps on trucking along. You've got two amazing answers to Lantern in the back, which is why you're not going to want to stay in there. That's why I built this team the way I did, because I knew that Lantern would be seeing a lot of play with the rise of the Flyers, so you're not going to want to stay in there. You go into G-Fisk and play on from there. Zoom Roll is a bit tricky as well. That's another one. You're going to be either winning lead with A9 or soft losing lead and looking to come in with DD. That's basically how you're going to play this team. It's a balanced team, so you're not forced to swap as you would with an ABB style team, unless it's a very hard loss like a Bastiodon or a Lantern, or even a Toxapex. Toxapex is a bit tricky. Deoxys has a narrow loss in the one shield, but you are not staying in there at all whatsoever against a Toxapex. You're going into, you could go right in the G-Fisk, but you never really want to go in with your hard counter. That's a tricky one, because you don't want to safe swap DD, because if there's a ghost type in the back, you're putting yourself in a rough spot, particularly if it's a Trevenant. So I would still go into G-Fisk on the Toxapex leads. And everything else in between, my friends, is pretty straightforward with this team. So that is team number 5. Very solid scorecard, very solid team overall. And that about wraps it up, guys, for my top 5 best teams for the Great League. Season 13 is looking to be another fun season. We've got a lot of fun specialty cups, a lot of new Pokemon that will see some more relevance throughout all of the leagues, especially in the Great League. So that is my top 5 best teams. Guys, I had a blast. I hope you all enjoyed. As always, I thank you for watching, and keep up the grind. Thank you, guys.